All right, everybody. Hey, welcome. We are going to do our first lesson here tonight on the project of water use. And the way these lessons are going to go are we're going to start really talking about how to break down these projects in environmental science. Since the majority of you seem to have, when you come in, you have questions about what am I looking for in these projects. I figured we could do these nice little quick 5 to 10 minute tutorials on how to break down the project, what to look for, what are some resources that you can use to help you be successful with it. So that's really going to be the format of our live lessons. They're really going to be a means for you to come in and just ask questions, and we'll use these videos as the vehicle to really help you succeed on the project. So, the first project that you have in this semester is on water use. And you actually did a lesson on water use. And really, when you look at the importance of it, it's probably in the last 5 years has become a really mainstream issue. When you look at really across the nation, water is really vital to everything you do from a household perspective, a community perspective. When we're talking about agriculture and energy production and wildlife and forestry. So our resources with water are really abundant, but they're not limitless. And if you really take anything away from environmental science, especially when we're talking about non renewable resources, um, we really need to be cognizant of and have a good understanding of how much we use of these resources across the country so that we can make choices about managing them and managing them effectively. So let's talk a little bit about this project. So the project itself talks about um, our water use and specifically the water use in your state. So for the majority of you in Pennsylvania, this is where it'll be applicable to you. If you're in another state, obviously you want to take a look at your states. But the project suggests that you use the map of consumptive water use to complete this assignment. So when you click this link right here, this how much do you use the story of water, okay, what it's going to do is it's going to take you to this page, okay? And this page has a whole bunch of information on it about how much water you use. It talks about the story of water. It talks about tracking where your water goes. Here's a hyperlink here to the United States Geological Survey, which I'll pull that link up in a few minutes here to talk to you about that. And it talks about how the U.S. Geological Survey has actually tracked national water statistics really since 1950. And then it talks a little bit more about low water use, categories of water use, and really the big hitter here are these two graphs that are really going to help get you moving on this. Okay, you can take a look at this, the water withdrawals on the axis, and actually see the explanation of the trends that have occurred really since 2010. I'm sorry. Um, but it also, you'll see here, this figure talks about the total water withdrawals by state. So I want you to focus on this, but I also want to come back to that. So part one of this project really has you looking at water withdrawal and the consumptive use in the state. So here it asks, identify your home state and its values for freshwater withdrawal and consumptive use. And then from there, it wants you to write a 2 to 3 paragraph report of at least 225 words on the factors that you believe contribute to the values for your home state. So here's where you go back to this site. You're going to find our state, Pennsylvania. Okay, if you're residing in Pennsylvania, you're going to see that of all of the withdrawals in millions of gallons per day, Pennsylvania is somewhere around, I would say, let's say 12 to 13 million gallons of extraction a day. Of those, you can see the majority are used for thermoelectric power, um, industrial, and then, of course, public consumption, with the smallest being irrigation. So right there, that should tell you about what the values of the state of Pennsylvania are. So if we go back to there, okay, you can see what our uses are. And then in that report, you're going to create a 2 or 3 paragraph report. So you want to start with a little bit of an introduction about water consumption in Pennsylvania, okay? And then talk about the values. And you're going to say, so where do we get that? Well, okay, if you go here, and I'm going to post all these links within the Moodle site as well, This is also the United States Geological Survey's Water Science School. It talks about freshwater withdrawals, and you can actually find categorizations according to their use. And if you go one more, this is for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's our Department of Environmental Protection. It talks in this article, which again I will post, about the values of Pennsylvania water supply, how much we've used, where do we get it from, where does it come from. So really this article here can really help you formulate this 2 to 3 sentence or 2 to 3 paragraph project about what's contributing to the values of our state. We obviously know that electricity generation in Pennsylvania is an important value, not just for the state of Pennsylvania, but also for the tri state area, the Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland, Delaware area. Okay. Um, we know that personal or industrial use is big. Okay. And we just talked about too, if you go back to that graph, that also public supply is big since Pennsylvania has a very large population. So really those three values should help form your little essay about the factors that are contributing. Okay, so that's first. Now, second, then part two asks you to explain how much risk you think your area has for water scarcity. So, really, to reframe this question, it's asking, if you're a Pennsylvania resident, how would you, based on what you're seeing, how would you rate the risk of us having a drought, or actually even going beyond a drought and going to an area or going to a situation where water would become scarce? So, where do you go to find that? Well, we have a nice website, which again I'll post. The Natural Resources Defense Council talks about climate change, water, and the risk. Okay, and there's fact sheets here that you can look at, and there's also a sustainability index that goes all the way out, or is projected to go all the way out to 2050, that talks about the impacts of water supply and an overview by state. And you can actually click, if you see down here in the Nebraska to Pennsylvania range, that talks about water shortage risk and crop value as they relate to each other. Because remember, agriculture is a big part of what Pennsylvania does as well. It talks about that, the risk. So going back to this, you can tell us in your opinion, and based on what you're seeing in these results, how much of a risk do you think Pennsylvania is at? Is it a high risk? Is it a low risk? Is it a moderate risk? And then tell me why you believe that. Okay? So that's really what the project is asking you to do. Okay? The guidelines for the project. Obviously, in the assignment, if the report is 2 to 3 paragraphs as a whole, okay, we want to have a nice introduction, talking about the use, and then talking about the value for water scarcity, and then a summary. So there should be a nice flow of ideas. Okay, I'm going to be looking to make sure that you're using correct grammar. So what I would suggest is to put it into a Word document, spell check it, and grammar check it before you copy and paste it into Odysseyware. Okay, talk about some realistic ideas. Okay, I've shown you three really great links here from three government sites that talk about real hard data, some accurate numbers that help you to elaborate on the factors that are going to contribute to our water use. Okay, so be able to back those up, saying from the article, according to the United States Geological Survey's article, according to the National Defense Council, their article. Okay, so make sure you're using your sources, make sure you're citing your sources within there. Okay, and then obviously I'm going to be looking at that you can correctly explain the area's risk, and can you synthesize that information. Okay, so again, 2 to 3 paragraphs, somewhere around 225 words. If it's more, it's not a big deal. But if it's one or two sentences, obviously we're going to have a problem. So let's make sure that we at least meet the requirements of 2 to 3 paragraphs. Submitting the assignments with questions and your responses. I'm not worried about that. Okay. As long as you accurately address part one and two, if you want to break it up in your paper, part one, and then write, a paragraph or whatever, or two, and then part two and write a paragraph or two, I'm okay with that. If you just want to make it all one big paragraph and you want to make it flow like that, I'm okay with that. Um, so here it says paragraphs need to have a minimum of 6 sentences. Um, I'm not going to stick hard and fast with that rule, but generally speaking, a paragraph should have at least 4 sentences. And if it's more than that, that's cool too. Okay. So again, I would suggest writing this out on a Word document and then maybe copying it, pasting it in here, and then remembering to hit submit. And then that way, if there's ever an issue, you can always save that Word document and you always can go back and reference it later. If OdysseyWare did something crazy and I didn't get a submission, you can always then just attach that to me and email it to me, and then we don't have to worry about, hey, I didn't do the assignment, or hey, I lost the assignment. Okay, so that's the project water use assignment. I hope that it helps to break the project down a little bit more for you. And we'll be posting this to Moodle here within the next 24 hours, so you'll have this available to yourself. And going forward, this is what we're going to do for our virtual lessons in the evening. So if you have any other questions, Pete, please feel free to reach out to me via email or via phone, and I'd be more than happy to help you out. Have a great week, and good luck, everybody.